The word civilization is open to interpretation, but archaeologists usually refer to ancient civilizations as human societies with a high level of cultural and technological development. Although the Aboriginal people of Australia, for example, are commonly believed to be the oldest continuous culture to inhabit the Earth, their nomadic habits and lack of infrastructure usually means that they are not counted as a civilization. This is open to much debate. Most people have heard about the ancient Egyptians, the Aztecs, and the Incas. But there are many more ancient civilizations that are not so well known but which have left behind tantalizing glimpses into an older and very different way of life. Here are just a few of them. The Norte Chico civilization is one of mystery. To date, very little is known about this pre-Columbian society in Peru, which is possibly the oldest known civilization in the Americas. Evidence of huge constructions, including pyramids, and the remains of complex irrigation systems have been found, but there is little to show how people lived their daily lives. To date, 6 pyramids have been discovered, the largest of which is known as Pyramid Mayor. Though not as elaborate as the later Inca architecture, the pyramids were still complex structures. Norte Chico settlements were situated north of modern-day Lima. It is interesting that Norte Chico is one of the few civilizations at that time which did not appear to know how to make pottery, as there have been no such artifacts discovered at the sites. It is believed that they used gourds instead, which would have been of limited use in cooking food. To date, few examples of art or decoration have been found on their artifacts, though there does seem to have been some belief in a deity, though it is not possible as yet to say what form their beliefs took. The settlements were abandoned sometime around 1800 BC, but it is not yet clear why. There is no evidence that they were ever involved in war or conflict, nor that they were hit by a natural disaster. The settlements were centered around 3 main rivers, so it is possible that a prolonged drought caused the population to migrate elsewhere, but this cannot be proved. So the mystery remains. Nubia, which lay to the south of Egypt and Sudan, was a civilization that once ruled Egypt. Nubia had its own pyramids. The remains of 223 can still be seen today. Ancient Egypt's 25th dynasty, also known as the Black Dynasty because of the dark skin of the Nubian pharaohs, was a period of stability and prosperity, with much emphasis on culture and the arts. The kingdom had its own written language and culture, and the region was rich in gold. Nubia had their own symbols of kingship, but their influence was over when Pharaoh Sneferu raided Nubia and established it as an outpost for mineral extraction. Far from being a land of status, it became a region of Egypt under the pharaoh's control. The Nubian people largely assimilated into the Egyptian population, though archaeological evidence of their civilization remains. Like the Egyptians, they favored carved images of themselves, though they did, at times, like to portray themselves as overweight. To each his own. Nineveh, modern-day Mosul in Iraq, was the site of one of the oldest and greatest civilizations. The early city was damaged in a series of earthquakes, including the destruction of the first temple of Ishtar, but the city continued to grow. King Sennacherib made Nineveh the capital of the Assyrian Empire, building a 15-gate Great Wall around the city as well as parks, aqueducts, canals, and an 80-room palace, which, being a modest man, he proclaimed a palace without rival. Some scholars believe that the famous Hanging Gardens of Babylon were actually located in Nineveh and commissioned by the king. A library was constructed, containing over 30,000 inscribed clay tablets, an enormous number of works for the time. Scholars and scribes flocked to the city, and it became a center for the development of the arts, sciences, and architecture. One of the most unusual tablets found at the site told the story of a great flood which drowned the whole world and a man who survived by building a boat and who released a dove in search of dry land. This version of the Noah's Ark story was part of an epic poem written in 1800 BC, 1,000 years before it was included in the Hebrew Bible. Much of the contents of Nineveh's library now lie in the vaults of the British Library. A royal feud in 627 BC led to the breakup of the Assyrian Empire, and in 612 BC, Nineveh was burned to the ground by a combined force of Persians, Babylonians, and others, who divided the region between them, allowing the grand buildings to fall into ruin. The ruins began to be excavated in 1846, and work has continued to the present day, though it has suffered during recent unrest and been damaged by vandalism. In 1974, excavations began at Mehrgarh in Pakistan, but a lack of government interest, erosion of the land, and chronic looting of the site has kept Mehrgarh a relatively hidden civilization. Additionally, archaeological digs have been made more difficult by ongoing tribal feuds and lack security for the diggers. That's a shame, because Mehrgarh is one of the oldest civilizations in the world. Those artifacts that weren't pinched show a highly developed society with established trade links with different regions. It is believed to have been in existence around 7000 BC, thousands of years before the Indus Valley civilization in the same region. Mehrgarh is thought to have had a population of around 25,000, and evidence of daily life there is still being discovered, including indications of dental surgery. Many of the remains are buried deep in the ground, and uncovering them poses as challenge. Remains excavated so far include a complex of well-preserved buildings made from mud bricks and even a formal cemetery. Around 1500 BC, a large group of nomads, possibly including the remnants of the Indus Valley civilization, moved into India. It is unclear whether this mass migration was a result of fleeing from a natural disaster or whether it was, in fact, an invasion. Whatever the cause, a new civilization was born on the Indian subcontinent. The Aryan language developed, and the new settlers developed agriculture. The Aryan civilization was widely established by around 1000 BC. Note that the name Aryan comes from the Sanskrit word Arya, which is what these migrants to India referred to themselves as. Today, there is little historical record of this civilization, though it is mentioned in the Vedas, a collection of religious texts, with tales of war and other conflicts. However, there is no way of knowing how accurate these texts are. There are few remaining artifacts of the period, though archaeological research is ongoing.